Hello, guys. Welcome to part two of my podcast with Andrew Velez. He is the Elder Administrator for the Georgia District, and we're having a great time. Hope you enjoy it. How can churches set up systems, or how can leadership teams in our local churches better support the mental and emotional well-being of their pastors before they reach that burnout stage?
Sure. Right. That's a great question. I think it's helpful to break that down into almost like a twofold attack. So if we look at it systemically, and then we look at it from that church leadership team perspective. And I think that it's important, if we want to affect change in this area, to hit it from both of those avenues. So systemically, I think it goes all the way back to their initial ministry training. And I think and not trying to rule out people that have been in ministry or older ministries, because we love them too, but the statistics, they're just a reality that they're less likely to buy into changing in mental health, right? So when they want help, we're there to help them. But really what we want to do is we want to lay a new foundation for the next generation coming in. Because we always want better for our kids, and we want better for their kids. So systemically, instilling these understandings and beliefs in their initial ministry training, that their mental health is vital to the success of their ministry and the success of their church. Teaching them self-care from that early time in their ministry, when they're in that mindset of learning, when they're willing to learn new things. I think that's really important. And then emphasizing that as you leave training, you want to bring this into the church with you, and also this is something you want to look at as you're trying to find positions. Not saying that we would ever tell God, no, I don't want to go here, but if you're looking at the whole picture, these are things that you want to consider, like what is this church's understanding of self-care and not just the pastor's well-being, but leadership's mental health well-being.
Exactly.
So that's the first fold. And I think that there's lots of room to do that. And I think that even us as leaders now, we can start doing that through just talking to the ministers themselves, but also through like doing board trainings and stuff like that during transitions. I think when a church is in transition from one pastor to the next, that's a great time to lay a new foundation for that emphasis. And there's plenty of people that can do that. I know that you believe in it and you're passionate about mental health and self-care, and Pastor Jack is, and we have the whole elder team that is passionate and willing to work with churches and ministers on those issues as well. But that second fold is getting the leadership teams in the church, one, to buy in to the idea that a healthy church or a healthy pastor makes a healthy church. But it goes further than that too, because one of the things that frustrates me is that now that we're getting better about mental health, the focus is on the pastor, and the family gets left kind of in the shadows, right? So a healthy church or a healthy pastor makes a healthy church, but if he doesn't have a healthy family, you're not going to have a healthy pastor. So you have to look at it from a family systems kind of methodology and say, how can we take care of the ministry family so we can have a healthy church? So that buy-in is very important, and I think the way to do that is get them to understand the burdens that ministry families go through. Because a lot of times our leadership teams are only focused on, I want a successful church. How can I help the church grow? Well, if you don't water the plants, you never get the fruit.
That's right.
You get a stem, and eventually that stem dies. And I think there's lots of different ways to do that would probably take a long time to get into.
Sure.
But I think that's the biggest thing. But then also working with those leadership teams and church boards, because I know a lot of churches, their leadership team is their board, especially in a smaller church.
Sure.
But getting them to understand what a realistic standard of work-life balance is, and then a structure for time off commensurate with the position, right? Just because it's ministry, I mean, we don't want a new minister and we say, hey, here's all this fancy stuff. I mean, they've got to work up to that time off and stuff too.
Certainly.
And then each position is going to be a little different too. And then,
So training is the first thing, is that we've got to share the word, or spread the word, so to speak, on with our boards, with our leadership teams, that your pastor's mental and emotional health is actually vital to the health and vitality and growth of your congregation and your church. And so unhealthy pastor, unhealthy church.
Right.
And being able to have boards and ministry teams see that and value it at the same time, which will sort of leads me to my next question, and that is, when a pastor, because we're trying to tear down the stigma of mental health, and I've tried to be pretty transparent in my life, pushing back on some of the bad leadership that was taught, coming up from that leadership school, that you never have any problems and you certainly never share, that you're walking through anything and you know everything's perfect and everything's fine, and the birds are chirping and the bees are buzzing and everything's great. Pushing back on that a little bit, how far is too far when being transparent with your board, leadership team, and ultimately your congregation on some of the things that you're walking through, because you can be too transparent.
Right.
So how do you walk that fine line?
So I think it's very important, yes, to know where that line is, but not be afraid to toe the line, right? There's a lot of, I think, power in naming it to tame it, right?
Okay.
So if you can't identify what it is, how do you even get your leadership team and your board and your church to support you in it, right? But I say that to say this, right? You have to know your audience. I spend a lot of time, and I work with folks in therapy on this too. Is I've broken down all of my relationships into concentric circles, right? So I kind of put myself in the middle, and then I got a very small inner circle. I even did this in the church when I pastored in Hinesville. Like I wasn't as transparent with my entire board. I had a key person, right?
Okay.
That had proven over time that I could trust him to some extent. And this is one of the issues, is it does take time to do this, but it's worth the investment. And so in my innermost circle, I've got 3 people in that circle, right? I won't say who they are on the thing, but the way I kind of explain this is I can tell these people anything, like literally anything. I know the district is very fond of Sam Chan, right? These are my cussing friends.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Sure.
No.
We don't advocate cussing. However, I understand what he's saying.
It's just the nature of the intimacy there between that. And the reason I can tell them these things is because they've proven that when I tell them things, their response has my best interest in their heart, not their own. So kind of the idea is, as the circles get bigger, there's more and more people, but the bigger the circle, the less influence they have in my life.
Exactly.
Right? And the less information they get about my personal goings-ons, right?
Sure.
So, if we're having problems like this, I'm going to my inner circle people first, right? Hey guys, I'm having this problem. I'm dealing with this. I'm going to need time off. Strategically, like when I was pastoring the church, the board member that was in that circle, he was one of the most influential people. And while we want to say that everybody has equal voice, the reality is we know that some people have the gifts and talents and ability to communicate to other people and help them understand things.
Right.
So I went to this guy when I had issues and explained what was going on, and he helped me to communicate that to the board members. And what he did was it was more generalized, and what I told them was more generalized too. So we had a joint statement that we would make together after we talked together in that intimate setting. I think that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. So let's say it's a Sunday and you're walking through something and you really do feel a desire to be real, be human, and to be transparent, but you don't want to be overly transparent. So can I play the devil's advocate on some of the battles that we fight as pastors in being transparent and vulnerable? And I think that's the other part. Is it not just necessarily the transparency, but the vulnerability of people who may not care for your information the way it ought to be? And certainly some of the critical spirits out there who may say, well, you're just not praying enough. You know, if you were really walking in the Spirit, you wouldn't burn out. I actually had somebody say that to me years ago, early in ministry. Well, if you're walking in the Spirit, you don't burn out. Now, when I went through clinical burnout in 2019, that was a lie, because you can do that doing good stuff. We're trying to correct the construction issue there at the campground, and you know, trying to get it ready and all these other things, and just pushing hard, and running right up on into clinical burnout. And it took months, almost a year, to get back to you know, what I would say normal. And I don't know if I'm ever normal, you know. I've heard that say before, is anybody normal? I don't know of anybody normal.
It's relative.
I've never met them yet. I'd like to meet some normal. You guys are normal, you're watching, but the rest of us, no, we're not. You know, how transparent are you with your congregation? You're saying, hey, I'm struggling with anxiety today. You don't want to encourage someone to struggle. You want them to be better.
Right.
So where do you draw that line on that transparency, while at the same time trying to help someone?
So I think ultimately, each pastor or ministry leaders have got to make that decision for themselves,
Okay.
right? What they feel comfortable with. So because we're right here, I can really only speak from my own experience, right? With my congregation, I think I was what most people would consider very vulnerable. I think most of my congregation knew that I dealt with PTSD, and with the PTSD, I had depression and anxiety. And again, going back to my circles, I remember some of my coping skills sometimes where I would lay down in my office on the floor with my feet up in a chair while I was doing my deep breathing. Well, one day I forgot to lock the door, and in comes my trusted board member, and he's just staring at me, looking at me like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just kind of having a little bit of a panic attack, so I'm just dealing with that." He was like, "Okay, well, just come see me when you're done," and he closed and locked the door. But even with the congregation, if you remember kind of what I said, if you're going through it, chances are your congregation's going through it.
They're going through it too, yeah.
I can't think of a better way for your congregation to know how to walk through something than to watch their spiritual leader walk through it well.
Exactly.
Right? They don't want to see you falling apart, and this is why self-care and having boundaries and knowing when to call in somebody to pinch hit for you is very important.
Yes.
But I don't see a huge issue with being transparent even from the pulpit. I mean, we've had our leaders in the district. You've shared, Pastor Mark shared before you, his
Sure.
struggles with depression and anxiety. I also think, too, there's enough people now that are knowledgeable in both mental health and biblical wisdom that you can include it in a routine teaching in your church. Like I know in the month of May, I've got 5 different bookings to preach on mental health in the district.
Incredible.
And it's something that I'm passionate about, I like to do. But I would like to say one other thing, too, is the other thing I said, don't be scared of it, right? A lot of times we're so afraid of what people are going to think that we forget that the God that we're serving is so much bigger than anything that they're going to say to us.
Absolutely.
And I can't,
Wow, that's good. Say that again. Say that
the
again.
God that we serve, hopefully I can say it right. The
Yeah.
God that we serve is so much bigger than anything that anybody's going to say about us.
Wow.
And one of the things, one of the examples I preach on when I do these mental health sermons is, you know, I talk about Elijah. He takes on this army of people, and he calls down fire from heaven, and he runs faster than horses. And then this girl says something mean about him. He loses his mind. He lays down underneath the broom tree and says, "Okay, Lord, I'm ready to die." Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy goes suicidal, and it just makes me wonder. Like, if you think about any one of these people, right, that you think might say something to you, I mean, would they say something to Elijah about his mental health? Like, how dare you think that? There's no way that they would go up against one of God's anointed like that.
Yeah.
Right? And if they did, I think that God will have a way of humbling them.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same today, because he's the same God from back then that he is today.
Right.
And so I would say, don't be afraid to be vulnerable and transparent, but know your audience.
Wow, that's good. You mentioned that you go to churches and you do messages, or even, and I'm going to let you just take a moment and just talk about what is it that you can offer our churches across our district, because sometimes We don't. You may not even know that Andrew is available to come and do these things. This is his ministry. This is his calling to do that. And so you may not realize, oh, wait, I can ask you to come and talk to my church. Can you unpack a little bit about what you do?
Sure, yeah. So I could do a variety of things, anywhere from doing a Sunday service. I can come in and do a Wednesday teaching. This coming May, I'll be doing a 2-day event. I'll be doing a Saturday 2 to 3 hour seminar on overall mental wellness, goal planning, and anxiety reduction. Then they're going to have me stay over and preach Sunday.
Wow.
I do a lot of work with young adults because obviously they're more receptive to the idea of mental health. Yeah. But I love actually talking to mixed congregations and just getting them to think in a different perspective. Because there are lots of examples and evidence of mental health all throughout the Bible.
Oh, of course.
Like I said, I think that's the benefit of me being a licensed professional counselor and an ordained minister, is that I do a really good job, I feel, not to self-promote here, but of linking those two together without excluding one or the other, because they're both important and they're both present in the Scripture.
Okay. Well, we're going to put your contact information up on the lower third of the screen when we at the end of the video. But we want to say thank you for doing this. Our hope and our prayer is that through your ministry, there may be a pastor, there may be a staff member, a volunteer leader, or someone out there who has been struggling. And our prayer is that through this ministry, God will set them free to seek help. Yes. Okay, to start that journey. I started counseling in 1995, back when it was still, you're not supposed to do that, just considering what I was raised in. But I'm going to tell you, God has been good in that respect, and I'm such an advocate for it. We appreciate your ministry so much, and we hope, pastors, we hope that you take advantage of Andrew's ministry. Have him come in and do that. I love the idea of the Saturday night, Sunday morning coupling on that ministry and how you were able to marry those two areas of our lives. And so thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you. Appreciate your hard work in our district, Andrew. You are a valued member of our team, and we just thank the Lord for everything that you're doing. Pastors, we want to just reiterate to you, it's okay to not be okay. You need a Sunday off and you just don't have the resources to miss the pulpit, I want you to call me. Call us. We have resources. We can help. We've got pastors in our district that are looking for an opportunity to just come fill your pulpit. You need a break one Sunday. You need somebody to come and advocate for you with your board. We're here to serve you. We want to do that. We want you to be the best version that God has for you. And so if you're needing that break, we want to encourage you to reach out to us. We want to help you in every way that we can. We love you, appreciate you. We're praying for you, and we'll see you next time.